Right, hello. So hopefully this all goes live properly. So when I did members stream yesterday, we thought it might be a good idea to do a stream where we just talked about stupid laws in various countries. All right, Rich, you're on straight away. That's good. So basically, for those of you, this isn't so much like really modern stuff, like, oh, I hate such political party because they did this law. It's more just like really weird laws. Like there's one in London that's been around for about 300 years that you're not allowed to carry a plank over your shoulder. Not simply for the reason of like, you'd think in the modern context of, oh, you might hit somebody in a plank, but apparently because it causes like disruptions of footways to pedestrians. Again, you're missing the point entirely there, Skeleton Slater. That's not stupid at all. So yeah, the idea is laws that just really don't make any sense. So, ones in various countries of, I'm trying to think of like good examples, but I'll get the list up. But there's some in some countries where you can't do stuff before a certain time of day, but then you're allowed to. I think the weirdest one we found the other day was in Arizona. You can get 25 years in jail if you cut a cactus. So basically, if you go to the desert and you need to drink water, and you can cut a cactus to get water out of it. I've not seen that here, Chocolate Muffin, but I have seen similar laws to do with things that make noise. And I know in some countries where there's religious stuff, you can't have something that works on like a Sunday or like, another day, depending on the religion. Yeah, exactly, Rich. It's that sort of stuff. Again, missing the point, Drunk Russian. All right, Keaton with your new name. But again, 25 years for cutting a cactus, that's fucking stupid. Because again, like I could understand like $100 fine, because if you were a tourist and you got fined $100, like assuming that they could definitely catch you and do it, $100, I think nobody would want to do that and get $100 fine, or like increase it maybe to $1,000 fine. But it's 25 years in prison. So I bet you I can look up a load of things in the US where you could probably shoot somebody and get less time in jail. Well, I think with knife laws, Harley, it's more like the zombie knife laws that I'd say fall into that really stupid thing. Like if the knife's a certain colour, it's banned, but not if it's another colour. Because yeah, that's the sort of thing where, wow, again, that's a bit like eating mushrooms, isn't it? Or fungi. You need to know what you can and can't eat. It's not, again, you wouldn't get jailed if you ate a poisonous fungi. Yeah, that one was funny stuff, wasn't it? I mean, not funny in a lot of senses, but yeah, if you attempt suicide and fail, the government hangs you. But why has that ever happened during this, though? Exactly, Rich. That's why it's stupid, isn't it? The fact that there can be in some countries crimes that are very minor crimes, but you get more time in prison for them, potentially, than if you actually like rape somebody or like severely beat somebody up. From what I understand, Noble Nine, it's to do with it being like a bright color on the handle or the blade with intimidating words. And again, intimidating words. See, stuff like that, Skeleton Slayer, is more like what I'm on about. There's stuff like there's random stuff that's illegal in one place, but not everywhere else. Yeah, just copy and paste them, Chocolate Muffin, because that's good to keep the stream going if we're all talking about stuff. In what country is that the law? That sleeping, so you have to wait for the donkey up, do you, if it's in a bathtub? What? So butter was legal, but margarine wasn't, essentially, because it was one of those stupid anti-competition laws. Because the whole point of margarine is that it doesn't go off. Because if you look up the history of margarine, this is going a bit off on the tangent. It was developed for the French army so they could have a butter-like substance for rations that wouldn't go off. And margarine was also very popular in the Wild West because of the fact that, you know, you could transport it in the hot desert and it wouldn't go off. I actually like margarine, Fuzzy, but some margarines are crap. It depends what they're made up of, because obviously the whole point of margarine is vegetable fat as opposed to butter, but it actually depends how you make it, because you can get, awful margarines. Well, I think some of those COVID isolation things are a bit stupid, going a bit off topic though, ACM, especially the ones like an entire school might be off because one person in 1 year got COVID. That's very precise, isn't it, Harley? Is there a reason for that? I don't know, Richard. Again, I think lots of these things, chocolate muffin, like, again, driving blindfolded, you'd think whoever would think to do that anyway. Well, interestingly, Jack Daniels can't be called bourbon, can it? Even though it is a bourbon, because it's not made in Kentucky, it's made in Tennessee. That's why it's not bourbon, even though it's chemically it's bourbon. But that's the funny thing with all that shit. How Jack Daniels died is pretty funny as well. He kicked a safe because he forgot the combination, got an ingrowing toenail through the kicking injury, and died of infection because it was before antibiotics. So he literally died from kicking a safe. Again, so that is proper weird, is it? So could you actually get time in prison for that, or like a fine? Like your neighbour's like, oh, I want to clean my house. Oh, you can borrow my vacuum cleaner. Oh, you're going to jail now. But yeah, these are more the ones I was on about, the really weird shit, like that, you know, nobody under their right mind would have thought of. Yeah, but Skeleton, the point is that bourbon is like a thing. It's like brandy versus cognac, right? It's exactly the same thing. Over here, Director Intel, I believe it does. Like, actually, that's a good point. In the US, it might be different, but in the UK, it can't be labelled bourbon unless it's from Kentucky. That's like one of the weird laws when it's imported. Like, there's obviously the very important ones of single malt Scotch versus blended whiskey, because who would ever want to drink blended whiskey? Well, yeah, if it's Kentucky bourbon, yeah, but what I'm saying is in the UK, if you will only ever see bourbon on stuff that's got Kentucky on the label. All of the others will just say whiskey. I mean, you'd hope in most countries it would be illegal to drop animals out of planes, but speaking of weird shit though, Canada had like a 49 Celsius heat wave, didn't they? And bits of North America did, that's killed loads of people. That's very, very specific again, isn't it, Alizaz? So I can't. But yeah, like if that's a real one, again, it's like one of those very specific laws. Like somebody's like, "What's a weird law I can make up that nobody's going to do anyway?" Oh, right, I'm going to make that illegal. So if you just happen to do it, you're in shit. But yeah, if you look it up, just like saying that, it's kind of scary that they had a heat wave at the moment in North America and Canada. And apparently it's got to like 48, 49 Celsius in some of the places that's actually been killing people. Even though it's, you know, in places that would normally get like a high of 15 Celsius, which is crazy. I've actually never seen that, but I want to see that now. I know in Sainsbury's they do their own Kentucky bourbon, but it specifically has like Kentucky in big letters. Right, I don't know if this one is true, but I heard about this a while ago. Apparently in Australia, if you're a woman with small breasts, you're not allowed to do porn because it's considered child porn, even if the woman's like 50 or whatever. So apparently, yeah, if you've got like A cups or B cups as a woman in Australia, unless this is a bullshit thing, but I did hear about this on quite a few things. you can't do porn because like the politicians are so dumb. They're like, people will look at that and think it's child porn. That's not even Australia. People look at that and think it's child porn, mate. But they're like, who the fuck comes up with laws like that? There's really fucking weird porn shit in the UK, by the way, as well, where face sitting is not allowed in porn anymore made over here. And squirting is like, who the fuck comes up with this shit? I mean, prudes is the answer, isn't it? I mean, Australia is the place where every single thing is like poisonous and wants to kill you. But it's like, who comes up with laws like that? It'd be kind of like saying, right, if you're a man in porn, your dick has to be this big. If it's not, that's illegal. It's like, it's very odd, very specific. It's almost like the person who wants to like make the laws has their own tastes, but exactly, Arnold. Right, so Tyre, basically like the really weird ones are the more interesting one. I can get that chocolate muffin in the sense that it's meant to be so you don't pass on the costs of a funeral and that. But yeah, it's kind of stupid, isn't it? Because does that mean children under 18 have to have their parents sort out a burial plot for them? YouTube did a subscriber audit earlier this month, LD, or last month, whenever it was, and they knocked like a 1K off my channel. Well, they're communist skeleton slayers. So they like to be in charge of everything. That's a strange director, because I know in some places there were weird rules about the postal service like that, where there's certain things you can and can't send in the post, and not like things that endanger people, but just like a morality thing. Like, I think this changed, but it was either in the US or the UK postal system. Wasn't there a thing where you couldn't send pornography via the post? Yeah, it's weird, Rich, isn't it? Like the stuff where it's like, here's stuff that's over 18 is completely consensual. No, we're just randomly banning it from porn because a politician says so. Like, again, Isaac, that's weird, isn't it? So, are you allowed to do paintball and stuff like that there? Because if you're allowed to do paintball there, then that really makes no sense if airsoft is banned. Exactly, ACM. So also, it means that Matt Hancock can tell you to, you're not allowed to hug a dying relative, but he can fuck his secretary in a very, very awkward, weird way. That actually made me smile, Skeleton, so there you go. But yeah, it's a typical hypocritical politician thing. So, you know, it's very strange, isn't it? The list of yeah, for those of you that don't know, David Cameron, one of the old, awful UK prime ministers, allegedly, I'll say allegedly, so I don't want to be sued, fucked a pig, or fucked a severed pig's head, whatever it was. You know, Black Mirror predicted it. So, you have to justify chocolate muffin in that it was life-threatening. Speaking of that, with cannibalism, there was the weird thing that, you know, in Germany, there was like that weird bloke who ate another bloke, wasn't there? Like, he had this fancy of killing and eating a bloke, like Myers or something like that, his name was. Before he did that, it wasn't illegal, but when they put him on trial, they made up a new rule while he was on trial so they could actually give him like a life sentence or a really long sentence. Like, oh no, you can't have sexual cannibalism now. That's banned because you did it. So we're going to make a law upon it. I can kind of get it. It's a fucking weird, creepy thing, isn't it? But imagine that. Like, you look up the law, you're like, oh, I can get away with this because it's not a law. And then when the police arrest you, they're like, we're going to very quickly rush a law in so you can be tried on it. Yeah, exactly, Arnold. Frankfurter, I guess. But Armin Maiwis, is it? Whatever it is. No, not the Donner Party, but yes. So Hyder says you can drive your 125cc motorcycle alone on the UK road to practice on as a learner. However, even after passing a 120cc practical test, you're not allowed to practice on a bigger bike by yourself. So what? It's like one way you can ride on the road and get run down with one type of bike, but not once you've passed. That's a bit weird, I guess, but or not before you've passed. Do you think somebody did that specifically because of the joke, Harley? Eat their prime minister? I mean, I don't know. I don't think that's happened in the UK as far as I'm aware. I mean, the French were probably the most likely to do that during the revolution, beheading and eating people. I don't know, because they're French. CBD is legal and not legal here. It's very strange. It's one of those things where the law's not really caught up yet, where they've been doing lots of changes on it due to medical marijuana type stuff. Yeah, exactly. You can also get the UCARA through ways of just literally paying a bribe as well. Yeah, we were doing the weird stream thing, Mike, today of the weird laws. We've had some people I don't think quite get it when they've just said, like, there's a law I don't like in, like, my state or whatever. But we have had some very strange ones people submitted, which are perfect. Like, I think the weirdest one so far was it Florida that a woman who is unmarried cannot skydive on a Sunday. Was that the one, if I remembered it correctly? But yeah, that is really stupid, isn't it, Chocolate Muffin? Especially because on a drive-through, you'd be on private property as well, not on a public road. I think that's one, though, that's not really enforced anymore, is it? Just simply because so many apps do the pay-by-phone type stuff that they've kind of had to accept that they can't enforce that. Because I can totally understand if people are driving and looking at their phone, not at the road, they should get a fine or a ban from driving. Because, again, it's a bit like drink driving. You're basically just massively increasing the chance of an accident because you're not paying attention to the road. But when you're on private property, going like 1 mile per hour because you're pulling up to a window, why should you not be allowed to pay with your phone? That was the thing that made me laugh. On all the recent McDonald's adverts, when they were saying that you can get a McDelivery type thing, they were saying, do not use the app while driving. So that's like a legal thing they have to say on adverts now. Do not use the app while driving. Well, I never really thought to do that with apps, because it'd be more difficult to concentrate if I was driving and just sat here looking at a phone. But the thing is, of all those like McDelivery things and Uber Eats, none of them fucking deliver to where I live. So I can't get a KFC or a McDonald's. Even if I want one delivered, I'd have to drive to the nearest one. David, but you can probably take that to court and sue the police. Again, that's kind of missing the point of the stream, because in a lot of countries there will be times where you can do stuff perfectly legally. Somebody can call the police, and because the police won't know every law, or they might think they're acting in the public good, stuff can go to court. That's not the point of what we're talking about. We're talking about laws that are just really, really weird, full stop. Well, you shouldn't be shaving while driving, full stop, should you? Speaking of weird shit like that, there was a company in America that did like a dashboard thing so you could use your laptop while you were driving. Yeah, somebody brought that up earlier, Cornholia, that you couldn't have an ice cream cone in your back pocket somewhere. Like, the thing is, Tyre, when I get a takeaway, I normally get a Chinese or an Indian takeaway, but still, it's just the kind of thing that they fucking advertise non-stop here, but they don't deliver. So it's like, oh, thank you for wasting your money advertising in a place where nobody can order it. So they take that weird social rule thing, Chocolate Muffin, of like when you're at somebody's house for a sleepover and you don't know if you should flush the toilet or not. There's a Mitchell and Webb sketch on that, wasn't there? It was a poo. It was a poo. That sort of thing. But yeah, it's the actual thing. What do you mean, cornholio? If you mean ordering from where I order from, it's cooked fresh. And if you mean there's leftovers, there's not, because I fucking eat it all. Yeah, it's turned into a fucking food stream now, hasn't it, Arnold? Like, I can understand in some places if you get massive portions that people might put them in the fridge. But, yeah, that's not the case when I order food. If I'm ordering food, I'm going to eat it all. So why is it legal to escape from prison in Sweden? Sweden, yes. Yeah, that was brought up earlier, JJ. But again, it gets even weirder because there's ways about UKARA you can buy airsoft guns. But again, but yeah, Violent Crime Reduction Act is a very strange thing. Apparently, stealth camp, it's actually illegal to fly a kite while walking along the street in London as well. Yeah, I mean, Breivik shot loads of people, didn't he? And then he gets a PS2 in his room. That's a bit unfair. Yeah, I think they should do that on purpose to test it. Chocolate muffin demand to use their helmets. Say, I'm pregnant. You can't prove otherwise. Now let me piss in your helmet. Yes, Arnold, they do. Breivik got a PS2 because he said when he was in prison it was against his human rights that he didn't have a gaming console. So a mass terrorist murderer was literally like, "Oh, I need a PS2, lol," and they had to give it him. Because I think it goes both ways of like prison systems, doesn't it? Like, I think it's horrible to have some sort of thing of like 20 people locked in a damp cell with no toilet kind of thing, like some countries do. But then also, if your prison is literally like, oh, here's a 4-star hotel that you're going to stay in, it's like, well, people are just going to commit crimes to go to prison if they're poor. Especially if like you're a really evil psychopath and you're like, oh, wow, I get 20 years of just basically having food cooked for me and not having to do fuck all for the rest of my life. Yeah, that's the Nazi Freemason shoot attire, the very, very strange bloke who blew up a bomb, didn't he, outside a police station and then went to an island dressed up as a cop while shooting people, shooting children. I mean, I don't blame them. If I had a dog and somebody shot it, I would hang them, legal or not legal. You think it'd just be shoot them back, wouldn't you? But sounds like a sensible Nevada law. But yeah, Breivik was the one that shot like 60 people, didn't he, or something, on that island off of Norway. And then when he turned himself in, he basically kept going like, "Oh, give me free shit in prison," and they have to keep him in like a really nice solitary cell all his life because other prisoners would kill him. It's a strange law director, but again, if somebody kills dogs, they need to be killed anyway. Well, director, I did see a thing where somebody said if Breaking Bad took place in a normal country, Walter White would have got healthcare and it would have been over after one episode. David, yeah, it's weird because in some places I know people, like not in the UK, but like in places in America, I know there have been people that have been done because they've lured people to break into their house or something so they can legally shoot them. And then they have to have an investigation to prove that like it was, like somebody setting them up for murder. Because like I think, yes, you should be able to defend yourself if somebody breaks into your house, but the weirdest ones, like some Americans have brought up, are the ones where you have to legally shoot somebody dead or you can get done for it. So like if you shot them in the leg or something and then tied them up and then like called the police, you could get in more trouble than if you shot them, multiple times. So even on your property, see, that's a really weird bit, isn't it? Because again, there's lots of laws I can understand in public places, but when it's on your property, that's when it really is weird. Because if it's like, oh, nobody's seeing me do this, and it shouldn't even be illegal, oh, but it is illegal because government says so. Yeah, and Jack, there's a lot of those where they're not even classed as grossly offensive, isn't there? as in you can't even define what it is, but somebody might take offense to it. As in, we're doing it today on a public stream, Jim Bob, because we brought it up on the members stream yesterday. Oh yeah, jaywalking. It's the same in not just America, actually. There's quite a few places I've been to in Europe where you have to cross at a zebra crossing or lights, or you can get fined. Well, yeah, what's the section, whatever it is called one? It's like section 215 or something like that, isn't it? The one of you can literally get done for posting offensive stuff. Yeah, that's still a strange one, isn't it, chocolate muffin? I know in some countries stuff like that's illegal because you can grow crops that end up being invasive species, but that's a very specific one, isn't it? Section 127, the Communications Act, thank you. Yes, I've been to Norway and Finland, but I've not been to Sweden. Yeah, so you can have the rap in a song, but you can't post the rap lyrics online. Yes, Tyre, wasn't that Hamza Yusuf or somebody who introduced that? Yeah, he illegalized dinner table conversation. So if somebody recorded you saying something offensive in the right sort of way around the dinner table, even in the privacy of your own home, you've now broken a law. It's not like a public space thing anymore, it's in your home. So, you know, the telly screen is watching. You can't say down with Big Brother in the Scottish House, apparently. Yeah, apparently the craziest thing about that, Jack, is that wasn't there a case during World War II in one of the Axis countries where somebody did the exact same thing and they said there wasn't enough evidence to prosecute him, like the actual Nazis? So you know, the actual Nazis went, oh, even though we are genocidal maniacs, we don't think you did that in too bad a taste, so, you know, we will let you off. Right, bow hunting in the UK is pretty much completely banned, except for, I think, a couple of regions where it's allowed at certain times a year. But for the most part, the answer is no. Because I did look this up at one point, and there are very specific exceptions for it, but they're very specific. So the answer is basically no. I think it's like in certain lands on certain royal things, if permitted, you know, it can be done at certain times a year, but it's basically the answer is no. Well, I mean, I don't understand it, Isaac, but like I'm saying, don't break a law like that if it's going to result in you getting into lots of trouble or shot. It's not worth it, especially in places where you can fuck your life up for a stupid like law that doesn't make sense. It's not worth it. What's the Scottish trespassing law? I know about right of access or whatever it is. If you're on about that, Peter, and again, that got brought up on yesterday's stream, and it was on those ones where I think it's not as simple as it sounds on paper, because I think there's like apparently a thing in like most of the UK where you can legally trespass if you have certain professions, because you can do it to be like aiding somebody in their job. I haven't heard of that case, Arnold. Which one's that one? For the most part, Henrik, it's actually pretty sensible. As in, if you want to own a gun and you jump through a couple of hoops, you can own at least a shotgun. You know, it's not as bad as lots of people think. And again, that kind of does avoid a lot of mass shootings. Again, there's still crime with illegal guns. It's not going to solve that. And I do like the idea of the US Second Amendment, but our gun laws aren't as bad as people make them out to be, especially like people from, you know. So basically, the context of something being a joke doesn't matter either, Jack. So basically, all of Monty Python is a hate crime now, I guess. And again, define insulting exactly. If somebody has very, very weak emotions, you know, so they find everything offensive, does that mean that you've broken the Public Order Act? Again, this is why that, you know, you don't really go along with any of the hate speech legislation when people try and push it in countries where it's not been introduced yet, because it basically gets used to be a tyrannical sort of oppression tools. Well, they did ban the Germans from ever being showed again on the BBC, didn't they? As in the best episode of Fawlty Towers, potentially. Depends on what your favourite episode is. I imagine they've changed that, haven't they, with COVID director intel, or if not, a lot of people have been arrested. But where are you going to end that logic, Skeleton Slayer, especially if we're not talking about the US where it's in your constitution? So do you have the right to own a nuclear bomb because you own a nuclear bomb? Can you not understand why that would be an issue? Yeah, exactly, Mike. That's the thing. Because wasn't there like a Jack Striker video where he asked people, like, what would you think if everybody in Britain as of tomorrow could buy a gun? And most of us are pro-gun didn't like the idea of that. Just because the idea of like every fucking person who wanted to own a gun just suddenly being able to spend some money, get a gun and carry one on them is actually quite a scary thought. You know, like the fact that somebody might get into a minor argument and pull a gun on somebody. Sadly, Brightold, they're illegal here as well, because you might not know that Weapon Collector used to be king of the knuckle dusters. And he had like one of the biggest UK collections of knuckle dusters, and then he had to destroy all of them because the fucking police randomly changed, or like the government randomly changed the law so you couldn't even own them in your own home anymore. Yeah, that's the Germans' giraffe microscope. When he's like, you started it! And he goes, no, you did, you invaded Poland. The thing is, Flazzy, I definitely know people that have got in fights before, you know, and had sometimes a couple of days in, like, you know, not proper prison, but in, like, a police cell for, like, minor assault, and then they're let out with a bit of a warning because the person doesn't press charges, that probably would have shot somebody to death if they were allowed to carry a gun. Because, like I said, it's bad enough with random stabbings, isn't it, where idiots carry knives and use them over the, like, smallest fucking thing. But yeah, the idea that fucking random idiots could buy guns. Right, it's called the Long March through the Institutions, isn't it, Jack? I assume you mean communist China, not columnist China. But the Soviets did the same thing back during the Cold War. If Ricky O is punching you, then it's definitely a weapon. What were you being asked, though, Poker Clown? Because if it was for a shotgun license, then you don't need a reason. For a Section 1, you do need a reason, don't you? Because for a Section 2, they have to prove why you can't have a shotgun. I believe on Section 1, you have to prove why you need a gun. Section 1s and Section 2s are different. Well, murder is a completely different thing from manslaughter, isn't it? By definition, murder is a crime. So if somebody broke into your house and then you tied them up and slit their throat, that would be murder. If somebody broke into your house and you beat them to death in self-defense, that'd be manslaughter. They're two quite different things. Murder, by definition, means that it's like slightly premeditated. I've seen lots of weird UK pistols with a long sort of brace on them. But again, that's because pistols are basically banned here after Dunblane. I'd rather this whole stream didn't turn into foreigners talking about UK gun laws kind of thing. Just because it gets very tedious having to repeat them over and over and over again when people don't listen. Yeah, I mean, that's sort of like a beanbag round, isn't it, Skeleton Slayer? The idea is it really hurts but shouldn't kill somebody. But again, that would probably depend where you are in the world on the legality of that. Yeah, and again, that's a section 2, though, isn't it? Clay pigeon shooting is normally done with a shotgun. The thing is, with a lot of this stuff, like I said before, we're going off the topic of the stream, but with a lot of the stuff with the police, is if you've got a good reason for something, you might as well humour them, give them the reason, and then they're probably not going to be as kind of thinking, why are you trying to hide stuff? Because it's like, am I being detained, people? It's like, you can probably technically do that under the law, but it's going to make you very obvious that you're, like hiding something. Knives are not banned in the UK at all, except for very weird ones that we went about earlier. Again, there's a difference, I think, as well between being arrested and being charged. Because bear in mind, with a lot of things, everybody involved in something are arrested, and then whether or not they're charged is another thing. Yeah, zombie knives aren't being again, one of the weird cases of something that's actually illegal, as opposed to, you're not really meant to carry it about on you, but you're allowed to own it. Yeah, they're cool, Skeleton Slayer. Yeah, good luck getting one in the UK. I've done videos on all of them, Peter, so just watch the videos. Again, there's a lot of people now bringing up stuff that's not relevant to the stream. Again, I'm just going to keep repeating that. It's a good way to get blocked for people who keep repeating stuff that's not relevant for the stream when we're not bringing up politics. Yeah, saying, Richard, it's like Riccio, isn't it? But what if somebody lives on a ship, Chocolate Muffin? Then it's a dwelling, isn't it? But I suppose it means a land dwelling. Well, when you say new blue, Hank, I assume you mean very old. But do you like it? It's an interesting mask, isn't it? Again, not on the topic of the stream. Well, as I said, Skeleton Slayer, at the beginning of the stream, a very weird UK law, which is apparently still a thing, is that in London, you're not allowed to carry planks on you. And apparently it was a law brought in 200 years ago because of people cluttering up pavements, carrying planks for construction. Where would it be legal to own a nuke? That's kind of asking for trouble, isn't it? I've got a thermonuclear warhead. It's only illegal if I detonate it, but at that point, the police can't do anything, can they? Right, Peter, just to answer it again, but we won't carry on going on about it because I don't want to derail the stream. The stupidest one is being arrested for posting stuff online that's offensive. And I warned somebody several times about bringing up certain politics and they didn't listen, so, Sorry, but you need to follow the rules if you're on these streams. Oh yeah, Mary Whitehouse. Yep. That's probably the same in other countries, isn't it? I know porn is illegal in some countries. But yeah, Mary Whitehouse seething Mike. Yes, video nasties. Or Arkansas. There's a weird thing like that here, Harley, except it's basically like health and safety rules. So if a light's above a certain height in like a building and you're an employee, your manager isn't allowed to get you to change the light bulb. They have to call an electrician. It's stupid. Because there was a job before where I had to climb like big ladders and I'd go past the light bulbs. I was like, can't I change them? They're like, no, because that's a health and safety violation. But you can climb the ladder to go past it if you're doing something else. But yeah, just to make it clear to anybody that's like relatively new to this channel, if we tell you to stop bringing up politics, don't keep bringing up politics. Because a lot of the time people on here just want to have fun. And this stream was mostly meant to be a fun thing to do with, you know, like silly laws, not things like, oh, I don't like this politician because of a law. Yeah, well, we went over that earlier in the stream, Mike, but yeah. But yeah, you missed us bringing all that stuff up earlier on in the stream. Yeah, don't they do it in several different ways now, Flazzy? Because apparently there's some ovens now that don't require that. Yeah, but that's again TXE Gaming. That's the thing where I bet nobody will call the police on you. My dad got arrested before for giving somebody a lift on his bike. Apparently I don't know if that's still a crime, but if you've got a one-seater bike and somebody rides on the back, you know, like piggybacking a lift off of you, that's illegal. And my dad actually got done for that. And it's one of the things he brings up as like a joke when like he's ever asked if he's like got in trouble or whatever. He's like, yeah, I went to court and got fined for giving somebody a lift on my bike. I'll see you, Brighto. But yeah, because he had to declare it when he worked for the police for a while, Mike. He had to declare like his criminal record, and it was one of the things where you can still work for the police if you've got done for something minor like that. And they thought it was quite funny. But yeah, that was a thing that he got done for, like in the '60s, where they went for like I think it was 100 yards down the road. Somebody didn't want to walk, and he said, you know, you can hop on my bike. And then a Jobsworth policeman drove past in their little car and was like, oh, I'm getting you done. But yeah, apparently, I don't know if that's still a law, but it was at one point that you can't give people a lift on a push bike. People keep bringing that one up, TXE Gaming, but I'm sure there's more to it than that, like rather than just handling salmon in suspicious circumstances. I'm going to actually Google it now, Mike. Push bike laws, 2 people on a bike. Again, it's like you can't ride 2 abreast, but that's not what we're on about. I'm just seeing if there's like a cycling site that just shows you what's legal and what's not illegal, you know, easily. Because I mean, a lot of cyclists just ride through red lights, don't wear high vis and all that, don't they? And they just want to get run over. But oh, I didn't know this one. Cycling on a road or other public places, including a bridleway, and bridleway is more interesting because that's kind of like, you know, like a footpath type road, isn't it? While unfit through drink or drugs, carries a fine of up to £1,000. There's no breath test for this. So basically, they can claim that they think you're over the limit and then fucking fine you. That's a bit dodgy. Um, As Boris Johnson discovered, giving your wife a baccy on your bicycle is a criminal offence, as it's illegal to carry more than one person on a bicycle unless it is constructed or adapted for the carriage of more than one person. Interestingly, the legislation doesn't refer to cycling, it just limits the number of people allowed on an unadapted bicycle. Bicycle isn't defined, but presumably means two wheels. So yeah, that's the thing. Oh, thank you, Sam. Sorry, I just missed that because I was reading the thing. He says, I think the sub £12 law for air rifles is a silly one. Do you have any air rifles out of purity? Right, I've got videos on them, Sam. There's one I've got which is kind of a bit fucked, so I don't use it anymore unless it's at very close range. Like, I'd never use it to hunt just because it wouldn't be humane because of the accuracy of it, and it's not really worth using at a distance. That's a Crossman nitro venom. But that's just because it's old and the barrel's slightly bent, so it doesn't really shoot where you think it's going to shoot. I've got a BSA Hornet, which is like a really cheap BSA/Gamo air rifle, which is very good for the cheap price. That's probably like a 10 foot-pound 2.2 air rifle. And I've got a Daisy Red Ryder, which is probably only like 3 or 4 foot-pounds, but it's just a BB gun. That's good fun. Yeah, so it's still illegal, Mike. So yeah, if you gave somebody a lift on the back of your bike and a cop saw you and was a dickhead, they would actually potentially have you fined up to £1,000 for that. That's a very strangely specific rule again as well, isn't it, Chocolate Muffin? Saying that, shoot your eye out with Daisy Red Ryder. The Daisy Red Ryder can now and again give you quite scary ricochets, because the problem is with ball bearings as opposed to actual pellets is that they bounce back a lot more, don't they? Especially if you're shooting them into like a harder surface, because like if you shoot them into several layers of cardboard, they generally never ricochet. But I have found with the Red Ryder, it's one of those things that if you're shooting like like a target like this, like a metal plate kind of one, they're a lot more likely to come back at you quite hard. So what, it's like a squatting type thing, Daniel. If their door's unlocked, you're allowed to go in and use their shitter. That's a bit worrying. So is the Queen not allowed to go to a beach then? Because if people are on the beach and are not wearing socks, that they get done. So it's to do with illegally fishing it. See, that makes a lot more sense, TXC Gaming. I imagine it's just because people shorten it to the suspicious handling of salmon. So again, it's not going to be supermarket like cuts of salmon, is it? It's going to be holding a full salmon like you've poached it. Oxfordshire giraffe. It's very strange that that's Arizona, where they're very like normally progressive on that sort of thing. Country, England is the country. United Kingdom, England. Yeah, good old days, Craig? But yeah, people actually die in the UK. Like not just the UK, but we get quite a few deaths per year. Like a surprising amount from people like messing about with air guns because of the fact that you can do serious harm with them. All right in some ways, shit in others. The UK. Again, we're going off the topic of the stream, but I suppose it's not awful, not great, not terrible. I don't know. Like most of the things people I think overseas think of the UK probably isn't true at all. Let me reread it now, Daniel, where you're talking about outhouses. It might make a bit more sense. So, you can use a toilet in someone's house if their door's not locked. So, if there's an outhouse, yeah, I suppose that makes more sense, doesn't it? That if there's an outhouse and you're like passing by their property, you're allowed to just pop into their outhouse. Yeah. As opposed to whatever the opposite of great is, because great refers to the size of it. Because I suppose it's Brittany, isn't it, which is not Great Britain. Or maybe Ireland, being the island, is like mini Britain and Great Britain is the mainland. I don't know. That's why it's called great, because it just means big. Yeah, so you have to help the swan even if it's going to break your arm. Not in the house, Peter. It's a bit of a weird question. We've had somebody break into the garden before. I think the police caught them, but it wasn't just our garden. They were like going, from garden to garden, I think, trying to get into people's sheds. And then when they saw, I think it was my dad, they like jumped over the fence to go to, a couple of houses down to try and then break into sheds. And I think the police got them in the end because they were like just trying to steal tools from loads and loads of sheds. Maybe they'll arrest both of you, litter picker. I don't actually believe that one, Skeleton Slayer. At least not for common plants. So yeah, so a longsword, I guess. So basically, Victor, what you're saying is, let's get this out. Hang on. So, if you had this, it would be fine. But if the blade only went to there, it'd be illegal. That's quite weird, isn't it? But yeah, I guess like you're saying, it's people specifically stabbing each other with daggers. I did not know that, Flazzy. Let me look up what pampas grass looks like so I can keep an eye out when I'm walking around. And then get done. So it's that what looks like reeds with the big white bit on the top. Kind of looks like a duster. Right, I don't think there's any in houses around this way anyway. I'll keep an eye out. That's because in France they beheaded most of their royal family, didn't they? They got the guillotines out and they chopped their heads off. I think that's why they don't have a royal family. I know they did have some royals that survived the terror and all that, but I think that's why there isn't a royal family in France. I literally answered that 3 minutes ago, Peter, when somebody else asked it even. Yeah, that was brought up earlier, Sing, although I thought it was just, they said earlier, a woman that needed a piss. But yeah, they pick up. I think it's probably just one of those weird things, isn't it, that? I mean, and the Russians had a king, didn't they? The Tsar, and then the communists shot him. A lot of countries that had royal families just ended up killing him. I think we quite like the Queen though over here. I don't particularly like Prince Andrew, for example. But yeah, the thing is with the royals is like the Queen and like Philip, they were just good fun. Anyway, I'll be off in a minute. Thank you for the person that donated. That's a weird one, Director Intel. Oh yeah, another weird thing with America. Don't you have to have alcohol in a brown paper bag? Because in the UK, that's not actually a thing. Like, in some councils, they don't like people drinking in public. But But you know, the weird thing is, like, isn't it in America that you have to have alcohol in a brown paper bag if you're drinking it outside? Yeah, he looked like a ghoul, didn't he, Skeleton Slayer? Right, I'll be on tomorrow, Mike, if you're on. I doubt I'll be too tired. If the audio doesn't work out, then I guess we'll just have to wait till your mic comes. Are you going to do Resident Evil tomorrow, or are you going to do Dreams to do a test stream to see how it sounds, and then do Resident Evil when the mic comes? Yeah, it's strange all that stuff, Flazzy, isn't it? Because I swear some of that stuff really varies from where you are. Because I know in Oxford city centre there was a thing where loads of bars said do not go outside, you know, with a glass, but that was more because of like the worry that you were either going to bottle somebody or just going to litter. So they forced you to, you know, finish drinking it before you left, but not because it was illegal to technically take the drink outside. But that's also the difference between an off license, isn't it? Because it's legal for an off license to sell you alcohol to take off the premises. Whereas a pub is like an on license because you're meant to have it on the thing. But yeah, that's why they're called off licenses, because you can take the alcohol off the thing. Yeah, we have to see Mike play Big Mummy Milkers, don't we, Stug? That's what we want Mike to play. That's why I gifted it to him, so Mike can do a reaction. But anyway, yeah, have a good evening, everybody. It's been a good stream. We had a couple of weird people come on that seemed to turn it into more like I want to complain about certain politics non-stop, where it was just more meant to be a light-hearted stream. Drive-through bars, that's amazing. But I assume there's still drink driving laws, aren't there? So you can probably buy the alcohol, take it home with you, but you're not meant to buy the alcohol, drink it, and then drive home, I assume. But I mean, technically, you could drink and drive, couldn't you, in a lot of countries, as long as you stayed under the limit. So if you had like half a pint of something quite weak, you could probably drink and drive that. Not that I'd recommend it. But yeah. Anyway, have a good evening, everybody. But yeah, so I have now learned that Florida Man has a drive-through boozer. That's quite cool.